The rain hammered the roof of the diner, each drop a tiny fist against the world's indifference. Inside, Ethan Cole, a 25-year-old plumber with hands scarred from years of wrenching pipes, stared at the boy across the table, Jasper Lee, 23, whose paint-splattered jeans and bright eyes seemed to hold a universe Ethan couldn't yet understand. That night, in a small Ohio town where secrets clung like damp rot, their meeting would crack open a life neither had dared to imagine. Ethan had never meant to end up here, at Millie's diner, nursing a lukewarm coffee while the world outside drowned. He was a man of routine: fix the leak, clear the drain, move on. His life was pipes and pressure, not poetry or passion. But the call that morning had been different, a burst pipe at the old community center, where Jasper, an artist volunteering to paint murals, had been frantically mopping up water when Ethan arrived. Their eyes met over a puddle, and something unspoken sparked a flicker that made Ethan's chest tighten in a way no wrench could loosen. Jasper, with his soft curls and quick laugh, was everything Ethan wasn't: open, unguarded, alive in a way that felt dangerous. He'd grown up in this town, too, but unlike Ethan, who'd learned to keep his head down and his heart locked, Jasper wore his truth like a badge. He was openly gay, a fact that had cost him friends, family dinners, and a few bruises in high school. Yet he painted bold, vibrant murals that screamed hope on every wall he touched. Ethan, who'd spent years burying his own desires under layers of denial, couldn't look away. "Ever think about leaving this place?" Jasper asked, his voice cutting through the diner's hum. His fingers traced the rim of his milkshake glass, and Ethan noticed the smudge of blue paint on his knuckles. The question hung heavy, like the storm outside. Ethan shrugged, his denim jacket creaking. "Where'd I go? This town's all I know." His voice was gruff, but his eyes betrayed him, lingering on Jasper's lips. He'd never said it out loud, not to himself, not to anyone, but the truth was clawing its way up, and Jasper's presence was the sharp edge prying it free. The diner's neon sign flickered, casting red and blue across Jasper's face. "You don't have to stay stuck," he said softly. "Sometimes, you just need someone to show you there's more." His foot brushed Ethan's under the table, accidental but electric. Ethan froze, his heart a hammer against his ribs. He wanted to pull away. He wanted to lean closer. That night, as the rain kept falling, Ethan drove Jasper home in his beat-up pickup truck. The community center's pipe was fixed, but something else was breaking open. Jasper's tiny apartment, cluttered with canvases and half-finished sketches, smelled of turpentine and possibility. "Stay?" Jasper said, not a question, but a challenge. Ethan's hand hovered over the doorknob, torn between the safety of his old life and the terrifying pull of something new. He stayed. The hours blurred, talking, laughing, silences that said more than words. Jasper showed Ethan his latest mural design, two hands reaching across a cracked wall, almost touching. "It's about us," Jasper whispered, his breath warm against Ethan's ear. "All of us who feel broken but keep reaching." Ethan's throat tightened. He'd spent his life fixing things: pipes, sinks, systems, but never himself. Jasper's hand found his, and for the first time, Ethan didn't pull away. But small towns have eyes, and secrets don't stay buried. By morning, whispers would start, and Ethan's carefully built world would begin to crack. Jasper, fearless in his truth, would face the town's judgment head-on, but Ethan wasn't sure he could. The night had changed him, but the days ahead would test whether he could fix what mattered most: his own heart. The morning sun sliced through Jasper's apartment, harsh and unforgiving. Ethan woke on the couch, his neck stiff, Jasper's sketchbook open on his chest. Last night's warmth felt like a dream, but the ache in his chest was real, raw, like a pipe joint soldered too fast. Jasper was already up, brewing coffee in a chipped mug. "You snore?" he teased, his grin softening the tension. Ethan rubbed his eyes, trying to shake the weight of what had happened. They hadn't kissed, hadn't crossed that line, but the air between them had shifted. Every glance, every brush of skin, carried a promise Ethan wasn't sure he could keep. "You didn't have to sleep on the couch," Jasper said, handing him a mug. His fingers lingered on Ethan's, deliberate this time. Ethan's pulse jumped, but he didn't pull away. "I'm not fragile. You know. I've been out since I was 16. I can handle whatever this is." Ethan stared into the coffee, black and bitter like his thoughts. "I'm not like you," he said finally. "I don't know how to do this." He gestured vaguely, meaning everything, the feelings, the town, the risk. In Millfield, Ohio, being seen with Jasper could cost him his clients, his reputation, maybe even his family. His dad, a retired plumber who still called Ethan's son with gruff pride, would never understand. Jasper sat across from him, knees brushing under the tiny kitchen table. "You don't have to know yet," he said. "Just don't run." His voice was steady, but his eyes held a flicker of fear like he'd been here before, with someone who couldn't stay. Ethan wanted to promise he wouldn't run, but the word stuck. Instead, he stood, muttering about a job at the hardware store. Jasper didn't push, just handed him a quick pencil drawing of Ethan's hands, strong and scarred, holding a wrench like it was a lifeline. "Keep it," Jasper said. "A reminder you're more than your tools." The day dragged Ethan back to routine, a leaking faucet at Mrs. Carter's, a clogged drain at the barber shop. But Jasper's sketch burned in his pocket, and every quiet moment brought back the memory of last night's closeness. By noon, the whispers had started. At the hardware store, Old Man Thompson raised an eyebrow when Ethan mentioned the community center job. "Heard you were there late with that artist kid," he said, his tone sharp. Ethan's stomach twisted, but he forced a shrug. "Just fixing a pipe." That evening, Ethan found himself back at the community center, not for a job, but because Jasper was there, painting. The mural was taking shape, those hands reaching across the cracked wall, vibrant against the dull brick. Jasper's shirt was splattered with color, his focus intense. "You came back," he said, not looking up, but smiling. "Didn't have anywhere else to go." Ethan lied. He grabbed a brush, hesitant, and Jasper guided his hand, showing him how to blend the paint. Their fingers tangled, and for a moment, the world was just them two men. One wall, a shared breath. But then a car slowed outside, its headlights cutting through the dusk. Ethan stepped back, heart pounding. "People are watching," he muttered. "Let them," Jasper said, his voice fierce. "I'm done hiding who I am. Question is, are you?" The challenge hung between them, sharp as a blade. Ethan wanted to say yes, to be as brave as Jasper, but fear was a vice around his chest. He left without answering, the mural's unfinished hands haunting him as he drove home. That night, alone in his apartment, Ethan pulled out Jasper's sketch. His hands, drawn with such care, looked stronger than he felt. He traced the lines, wondering if he could ever be the man Jasper saw in him. Outside, Millfield slept, but its judgment was waking, and Ethan knew the storm was coming. Ethan's phone buzzed at dawn, his dad's name flashing on the screen. "Heard you've been spending time with that Lee kid." His father's voice growled through the speaker. "Folks are talking. Ethan, you know how this town is." The words landed like a punch, and Ethan's silence only made it worse. His dad hung up, leaving a warning, "Don't mess up what you've built." The day felt heavier, the air thick with unspoken accusations. Ethan worked a job at the elementary school, replacing a rusted pipe. but his hands shook. Every creak of the building sounded like gossip. Every glance from a coworker felt like judgment. Millfield was small, and its memory was long. Ethan knew what happened to people who didn't fit the mold. He'd seen it with Jasper, the way folks whispered behind his back, the way his family's mailbox was still scarred from a brick thrown years ago. By afternoon, Ethan couldn't avoid Jasper any longer. He found him at the community center, adding details to the mural. The hands were clearer now, one rough and calloused, the other slender and paint-stained, reaching toward each other across a jagged divide. "It's us," Jasper said, catching Ethan's gaze. "Or it could be." Ethan's throat tightened. "People are talking," he said, his voice low. "My dad called. He knows I was with you." The words felt like a betrayal, but Jasper just nodded, his brush still moving. "They always talk," Jasper said. "They talked when I came out, when I got kicked out of my house, when I painted my first mural. You get used to it." But his eyes betrayed a flicker of pain, and Ethan hated how it mirrored his own. "I'm not you," Ethan snapped, harsher than he meant. "I've got a business, a life here. I can't just—" He stopped, the words choking him. Jasper set down his brush, stepping closer, close enough that Ethan could smell the paint on him. "You can," Jasper said softly, "but you have to want it." His hand reached out, hovering near Ethan's arm, but he didn't touch. The space between them felt like the crack in the mural, wide, fragile, begging to be bridged. That evening, Ethan went to Millie's diner alone, hoping the familiar hum would steady him. But the stares followed. Mrs. Carter, his client from that morning, gave him a tight smile before turning away. Two guys from the hardware store muttered at the counter, their eyes flicking toward him. Ethan's coffee grew cold as he realized the town was already deciding his story. He drove to Jasper's apartment, uninvited, heart pounding. Jasper opened the door, surprise softening into something warmer. "Couldn't stay away, huh?" he teased, but his voice was gentle. Inside, they sat on the couch, the sketchbook between them. Jasper flipped it open, showing Ethan a new drawing, their hands intertwined, no crack in sight. "I don't know how to do this," Ethan admitted, his voice breaking. "I'm scared, Jasper. Scared of losing everything." Jasper's hand found his. Real this time, not just a sketch. "You won't lose me," he said. "But you might lose the version of you that's been hiding. And maybe that's not such a bad thing." They talked until midnight. About fear, about love, about the lives they wanted but hadn't dared to claim. When Jasper leaned in, his lips brushing Ethan's, it wasn't just a kiss, it was a choice. Ethan kissed him back, tentative at first, then desperate, like a man who'd been drowning and finally found air. But as he left Jasper's apartment, the weight of the town's eyes followed him, and he knew the real test was coming. The next morning, Ethan's truck wouldn't start. It felt like a sign, the universe telling him to stay still, to hide. But Jasper's kiss lingered on his lips, a quiet rebellion against the fear clawing at his chest. He walked to the community center, where Jasper was already painting, the mural's hands now touching, their fingers laced in bold, defiant color. "You're late," Jasper said, grinning, but his eyes searched Ethan's face for cracks. Ethan didn't answer, just picked up a brush and joined him. They painted in silence, the rhythm of their strokes a conversation words couldn't hold. For the first time, Ethan felt like he was building something, not just fixing what was broken. But Millfield wasn't done with them. At noon, a group of locals gathered outside the community center, their voices carrying through the open windows. "That mural's an eyesore," one man shouted, his words laced with venom. "And you two keep your business private." Ethan's brush froze, but Jasper kept painting, his jaw tight. They don't get to decide what we are, Jasper said, his voice low but steady. This mural stays. We stay. Ethan wanted to believe him, but the crowd's anger was a mirror to his own fears. He'd spent his life blending in, being the good son, the reliable plumber. Now, every stroke of paint felt like a step toward a cliff. That afternoon, Ethan's dad showed up at the community center, his face a storm cloud. "This what you're choosing?" he demanded, gesturing at Jasper. "At the mural. You're throwing away everything for this." Ethan's mouth went dry, his father's disappointment a weight he'd carried since he was a kid. He wanted to explain, to say that Jasper wasn't a choice but a necessity. But the words wouldn't come. Jasper stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Mr. Cole, Ethan's not throwing anything away. He's just trying to live." Ethan's dad scoffed, but his eyes lingered on the mural, on the hands that looked so much like his son's. He left without another word, but the silence he left behind was louder than any argument. That night, Ethan and Jasper went back to the diner, defiant. The stares were sharper now, the whispers bolder. Ethan's hands shook as he ordered coffee, but Jasper's knee pressed against his under the table, grounding him. "We're not doing anything wrong," Jasper said, his voice a lifeline. "They're just scared of what they don't understand." Ethan nodded, but the fear was still there, a shadow he couldn't shake. When they left, a brick sailed through the diner's window, shattering glass and sending them ducking. The note tied to it read, "Leave." Ethan's blood ran cold, but Jasper grabbed his hand, pulling him outside. "We're not running," Jasper said, his voice fierce. "Not now. Not ever." They went back to Jasper's apartment, the bricks weighed heavy in Ethan's mind. Jasper lit a candle, its flicker casting soft light on the walls covered in sketches. "This is us," he said, pointing to a drawing of two figures standing together, unbroken. "This is worth fighting for." Ethan pulled him close, their foreheads touching, and for a moment, the world outside didn't exist. But the brick was a warning, and Ethan knew the fight was just beginning. The brick changed everything. Ethan woke to a flood of missed calls, clients canceling, friends distancing, his dad's number silent. Millfield's judgment was swift, a hammer striking at the life he'd built. But Jasper was there, his hand steady on Ethan's shoulder, his voice a quiet anchor. "We'll get through this," he said. "Together." Ethan wanted to believe him, but the weight of the town's rejection was crushing. He went to work, but the jobs were fewer now, the excuses flimsier. At the hardware store, Old Man Thompson wouldn't meet his eyes. "Folks don't want trouble," he muttered, handing Ethan a bag of pipe fittings. Ethan nodded, the shame burning, but Jasper's sketch in his pocket reminded him of something worth more than approval. The mural became their battleground. Every day, they painted, adding details to the hand scars, veins, a quiet strength that mirrored their own. But the vandalism started. Paint cans tipped over, slurs scrawled across the wall. Jasper cleaned it without complaint, his jaw set. "They can't erase us," he said, but Ethan saw the strain in his eyes, the cost of being fearless. One night, Ethan's dad showed up at Jasper's apartment, his face softer but still hard-edged. "I don't understand this," he said, his voice low. "But you're my son. I don't want you hurt." It wasn't acceptance, but it was a crack in the wall, a glimpse of hope. Ethan hugged him, the first time in years, and felt a piece of himself mend. The community center hosted a town meeting to decide the mural's fate. Ethan and Jasper stood together, hands clasped, as voices rose, some angry, some curious, a few kind. Jasper spoke, his voice clear and unwavering. "This mural isn't just art. It's about love, about fixing what's broken in all of us." Ethan's heart swelled, and when it was his turn, he found his voice. "I'm not hiding anymore," he said. "Jasper taught me what it means to be whole." The vote was close, but the mural stayed. It wasn't a victory over hate, but it was a start. That night, Ethan and Jasper sat on the community center steps, the mural glowing under streetlights. "We did it," Jasper whispered, his head on Ethan's shoulder. Ethan kissed his forehead, the fear still there, but quieter now. They weren't safe. Not yet. But they were together. And that was enough. The mural stood. But the town's tension didn't fade. Ethan's business took a hit. Clients who once called him for every leak now went silent. He worked odd jobs, fixing what he could. But the isolation stung. Jasper, though, was a light in the dark, his laughter and sketches filling the gaps in Ethan's days. They spent evenings together, cooking simple meals, sharing stories of dreams they'd buried too long. One afternoon, a new job cameo pipe burst at the library, a chance to prove himself. But when Ethan arrived, the librarian, Mrs. Hayes, hesitated. "Some folks aren't comfortable," she said, her eyes kind but firm. Ethan nodded, swallowing the hurt, and fixed the pipe in silence. As he left, he saw Jasper's mural across the street, the hands a quiet defiance. He straightened, refusing to break. Jasper started teaching art classes at the community center, inviting kids to add their own touches to the mural. Ethan watched, amazed, as the wall became a canvas for the town's youth, bright, messy, hopeful. A girl named Lily, barely 10, painted a tiny heart between the hands. "It's for you and Jasper," she said, grinning. Ethan's throat tightened, and Jasper squeezed his hand, their connection a shield against the world. But the threats didn't stop. A slashed tire on Ethan's truck. A cruel note slipped under Jasper's door. Ethan's fear grew, not for himself, but for Jasper, who seemed unbreakable but wasn't. "What if they hurt you?" Ethan asked one night, his voice raw. Jasper's eyes softened. "They can't take what we've built," he said. "Not unless we let them." Ethan started joining Jasper's classes, clumsy with a brush, but learning. The kids laughed at his attempts, and he laughed too, the sound foreign but freeing. The community center became a haven, a place where they could be themselves. One evening, as they cleaned up, Jasper kissed him in the empty room, slow and sure. "This is home," Jasper whispered. Ethan nodded, his heart full, but the weight of the town's anger still loomed. Spring came, and with it, a fragile peace. The mural was finished, a beacon of color in Millfield's gray streets. Ethan's business stabilized, a few clients returning, drawn by his skill and quiet courage. His dad started calling again, awkward but trying, asking about jobs instead of Jasper. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Jasper's art classes grew, and the community center buzzed with life. Ethan found himself there most evenings, not just for Jasper, but for the kids, for the sense of purpose he'd never known he needed. He started teaching basic plumbing to teens, showing them how to fix leaks, how to build something lasting. "You're good at this," Jasper said, watching Ethan with a group of kids, his eyes warm with pride. But the past wasn't done with them. One night, a fire broke out at the community center, the mural scorched but not destroyed. The police called it an accident, but Ethan and Jasper knew better. They stood in the ashes, hands clasped, refusing to let go. "We'll rebuild," Jasper said, his voice fierce. Ethan nodded, his resolve hardening. They weren't just fighting for a mural anymore, they were fighting for their place in the world. The town rallied, some out of guilt, others out of hope. Kids from Jasper's classes helped clean the debris, their parents bringing tools and supplies. Ethan's dad showed up, wrench in hand, and worked alongside them, Didn't raise you to quit, he muttered, clapping Ethan's shoulder. It wasn't an apology, but it was enough. By summer, the community center was restored, the mural brighter than before. Ethan and Jasper painted a new detail, a small, intertwined heart, hidden in the hand's shadow. It was theirs, a quiet promise of forever. The mural's unveiling was a quiet affair, but the crowd was bigger than Ethan expected. Kids ran around, pointing at their contributions, while parents nodded, some with tears in their eyes. Ethan stood with Jasper, their shoulders touching, the weight of the past year settling into something like peace. The hands on the wall, scarred and strong, told a story of love, of resilience, of fixing what mattered most. Ethan's business was steady now, not what it was but enough. He'd lost clients, but he'd gained something better, a life he didn't have to hide. Jasper's art was everywhere, his murals spreading to other towns, carrying their message of hope. They moved in together, a small house on the edge of Millfield, its walls covered in sketches and dreams. One evening, as they sat on their porch, Jasper handed Ethan a new sketch, their hands, older now, still reaching, still holding. "This is us in 20 years, he said, his voice soft but sure. Ethan smiled, pulling him close. "I'll take it," he said, and meant it. The town wasn't perfect. Whispers lingered, and some doors stayed closed. But Ethan and Jasper had built something stronger than hate, a love that fixed more than pipes, a life that held fast against the storm. That night in the diner, when their eyes first met, had changed everything. It wasn't just a pipe that got fixed. It was them, and the meaning of forever. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were living, and that was the truest fix of all.